video today is upper extremity of overview, upper limb overview. So you can say upper limb, upper extremity, arm, but a lot of times people just say arm. But if you're going to talk about direct to specific anatomy or anatomical terms and reference, we're going to refer to the upper extremity and its various parts. So let's kind of go over that now. You're going to have the upper extremity attached to the torso via the pectoral girdle. And the pectoral girdle is made up of the clavicle or collarbone and the scapula or shoulder blade. And they're going to form, if we were looking down from on top, this is the top of someone's head, and this would be where their arm is out here, which is sitting the scapula on the rear, and the clavicle and the anterior portion. Let's put a nose so you know that's the front. So you get this sort of, again from a superior view, sort of this C-shaped structure that forms the pectoral girdle that sits clamped on the torso, which is below the head and neck here. That's the nose anterior. And the pectoral girdle attaches the upper extremity to the torso, composed of the scapula and the clavicle. And we're going to go over some of the other parts. So we're going to cover the pectoral girdle separately. That's going to be composed of the pectoral region and the scapular region or periscapular region in the dorsum of the torso. Some other areas you're going to want to know are the humerus. That region is the shoulder. Right. Shoulder of the upper extremity. We'll come back to that in a moment. Then you're going to have the brachium, which is going to be your arm proper. That's going to be between the shoulder and the elbow, this region here, which interestingly enough, the one bone is the humerus bone. Then you're going to have the cubit or cubitus, and that's going to be your elbow. Then you have the antebrachium. That region is the forearm. The carpus, which is your wrist area. The manus, which is your hand. And then the hand is going to have the palmar surface, the dorsum or dorsal surface, and the digits, okay? So the fingers. So let's go through each of these regions. Well, we're not going to go through too much on this overview. Just realize there are these 6 regions, including the surfaces and digits of the upper extremity. And then you have, of course, the girdle is composed of the pectoral region, the axillary region, which we'll get to, and the scapular region. And then we can subdivide these further. For instance, the shoulder. I'll put shoulder in quotes because when we say shoulder, anatomically we mean a few different sub-regions. So your shoulder is going to be composed of 3 joints, classic articulations, and 1 pseudo-articulation. The articulations are going to be the sternoclavicular joint. This is the only bony articulation that joins the pectoral girdle to your torso, and that's going to be between the manubrial portion of the sternum and the medial end of the clavicle. This sternoclavicular joint is going to be the only bone-to-bone articulation that connects your upper extremity to your body. Then there's going to be a pseudo joint, which is the scapulothoracic joint. Scapulothoracic joint is called a pseudo joint because it does not involve 2 bony articulations. It's mostly the scapula in a planar style joint, which floats in a sea of muscle and meat, with the posterior superior aspect of the thorax. So that's not really a joint, it's just the pseudo joint. The sternoclavicular joint is a classic joint. And then still composing the shoulder, you're going to have the AC joint. This is the acromioclavicular joint. That's going to be the apex of that wedge-shaped, from above view, from a superior view, wedge-shaped pectoral girdle that I showed you in a little bit. This is the acromioclavicular joint, going to be the lateral end of the clavicle, joining with a projection from the scapula called the acromion. And then, of course, you have the glenohumeral joint. The glenohumeral joint is an articulation between the scapula, the glenoid fossa on the lateral aspect angle of the scapula, and the brachial bone, or the humerus. So these three that I've abbreviated, sternoclavicular, acromioclavicular, and glenohumeral, are the true articulations that make up the shoulder. I keep quoting in midair, shoulder. And then you have a scapulothoracic, which is a pseudo joint. It's not a traditional or classic bony articulation. So those are the sub-regions or areas of the shoulder that you're going to have to know. If you're interested in more specific anatomy. A lot of times people will conflate or misconstrue these terms. In general lay speech, when they're like, oh, my shoulder hurts. Then as a physician, I have to be more specific. What part of your shoulder? Is it axillary, pectoral, scapular? Is it sternoclavicular joint, acromioclavicular joint, glenohumeral joint? Lots of different mechanisms. Injuries, fall on outstretched hands, or foosh injuries can lead to different types of stress through the shoulder girdle. Sometimes people say shoulder girdle instead of pectoral girdle, but those are the general regions, and we'll cover those in other videos, in subsequent videos, piece by piece. Let's talk about another part of the overview. What is the function of the upper extremity in a bipedal, obligate bipedal creature such as a human? We walk around on 2 feet, so what do we do with these? Just hang there. I mean, they have to have some purpose. They're no longer a forelimb, even on my knuckles, like some of the other great apes, gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, bonobos, and then that poor gibbon, lesser ape. But what would be the function of this? Broadly speaking, we're going to say grasping, throwing, striking, and I'm going to put swinging in quotes. What I really mean is brachiation. Brachiation. This is one of the reasons we say the glenohumeral joint in our shoulder complex, or the pectoral girdle, is so highly mobile, because we can swing from our limb. We can be dependent from an overhead limb or bar, and we can swing through that without twisting in midair, because our shoulder, the pectoral girdle, the shoulder mechanism, allows those internal external rotations and full flexion so that we can swing facing ahead. You would do something like brachiation on the monkey bars of the playground when you were little. Monkey bars, a misnomer, should be called great ape bars, because monkeys are incapable of true brachiation. They can kind of swing or dog paddle through the air because their shoulder girdles don't work the same way as the human or the other great apes. So our upper limb is for swinging or brachiation, a specific type of swinging, as opposed to, say, a lateral or side swing, which we get to later. It is used for striking. We can use striking and throwing are very similar actions. I'm either making a striking motion and impelling some force to an object to throw it. We're very good throwers, better than almost any other animal. And striking is the same way. Instead of impelling force to an object to let go, we're using the distal end of our upper limb to concuss or impact with something. Typically, you would not want to do that with something as delicate or intricate as the human hand. It's got more subtle uses. But when power gripped into a fist, you can make quite an impact, especially if you use the medial edge of that fist, or the open palm, or even kind of a slapping motion. You wouldn't necessarily want to punch something with the distal ends of the metacarpals or the heads of the metacarpals. You're going to risk a boxer's or barroom fracture doing that. Plus, you can cut your teeth. If you were to punch someone, another human being, in the mouth, you risk cutting your knuckles, which I've done plenty of times, on the teeth. And if you're punching some sort of, you know, useless human predator in the mouth, you risk kind of disease. So it's best not to use the direct knuckles. But striking, throwing, similar actions, almost uniquely human. And then when I say grasping as a function that I teach the upper limb being for, I mean grasping food and then basically cramming it in your cram hole to eat, or bringing liquid up to your mouth. That's why we grasp things. That's why babies come out starting grabbing and putting things in their mouth. They're using their upper limb for what it's for. And these are the 4 basic functions. All right, so that's the general overview of the upper limb. We've covered the general regions we're going to go over in other videos, and sort of the functions of the upper limb. So leave any questions or comments below. Don't forget to push the like and subscribe and notification buttons so you can see when the other videos in the anatomy playlist pop up, so you can continue to educate yourself in the proper terminology of the human animal. And that's it.